It's about 7 o'clock p.m. that is, and this is going to be kind of like a reaction video, if you want, to another Peace Corps volunteer, Marie's video that she just made about winter and just her reaction to winter and how she feels about being somebody who likes warm weather and living in Armenia. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how winter affects me as a Peace Corps volunteer who lives in a rural village. Marie and I have very different kinds of service experiences because we live in very different places. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that, and also some of the strategies that volunteers and just people in Armenia in general can use to stay warm during winter. Winter is the hardest time to live here in Armenia, I think, because it gets really cold, first of all. It will snow later, probably like tomorrow or the next day it's gonna snow here in my village, but the problem is that unlike back home in the States, most of the houses or apartment buildings, homes, buildings are not very insulated, which means that if the temperature's 30 degrees Fahrenheit outside, it's pretty much the same temperature inside. And so that's really hard, just like mentally, but also physically. I am pretty much always wearing layers now at this time of the year, like 3-4 layers. I sleep with 2 big comforters, and I have a space heater that I plug in and I keep not at my bed, but like pretty close to my bed. Not dangerously close, just so that my safety security manager who might be watching doesn't get freaked out. But yeah, I turn that on before I go to bed, like an hour or 2 before I go to bed, then I unplug it before I sleep. And I close the doors to my bedroom so that hopefully some of the heat will stay trapped in my bedroom. But you're just never going to get warm. You're never going to get toasty. I remember our Peace Corps volunteer leader telling us during training, PST, that winter is really tough because you never get warm. You never get comfortable. You can be bundled up, you can have your heater on, you can be sitting in front of a wood stove, but all of that heat is really impermanent, and when you go to school, when you go to work, when you wake up, when you go to bed, you're just always going to be in this state of never quite being warm enough. And I see what she meant now because I think a lot of us are there. So it can be really tough, and it kind of messes with your psyche when you're just always cold. The days are shorter, the nights are longer, we have more like rain and snow and crappy weather, or it's cloudy at the very least, and just that lack of sunlight can really mess with people. So during this time, it's important to, force yourself to exercise. It's important to, eat healthy foods, to get enough vitamin D, either by going outside if you can, or like sitting in front of a UV light or something. But, you got to get your vitamin D to avoid seasonal affective disorder. And then, just like variety of your meals, like, food can be more expensive in the winter because there's not as much variety, or it has to be imported, but you can survive and have a semi-varied diet in the winter. They also have a lot of canned food that is, available, so maintaining a diet, and not just eating potatoes all winter. I know that's hard for people in different parts of the country, but it's really important to maintain a healthy diet, exercise. I know I don't do enough of that, so that's on my list. But also, like, utilize what your village has, like My village doesn't have gas, unfortunately, so gas is like a fairly, like, much more inexpensive way to heat a home than wood. Um, Pretty much everyone in my village, because we don't have gas, we use wood stoves called varans, and people also use electric, like, space heaters. That's what we have in our school to heat up the classrooms because it gets really cold and we don't have, like, central heating. Um, so people do that. Electricity is expensive, firewood is expensive. Winter is tough. People basically save up and get ready for winter months before winter actually hits here. Um, so yeah, having a heat source is super important, whether it be a plita, which is a electric heater, or a varan, or pitch in Russian, um, which is a wood stove. I'll show you mine in a bit. But yeah, like having a heat source is important, and then trying to insulate your home as best as you can. I'm moving my potatoes on my wood stove, which I will show in a bit. Oh, they're getting close to cooked. Yeah. So yeah, you want to make sure that you are getting a heat source, and also not just a heat source, but that you're insulating as best as you can. And so people do this in a variety of ways. You can put, they have these like rubber strips that go under your door in the cracks, or like in the door jambs. You can put cotton in the little cracks between spaces. I've seen people literally like nail sheets of plastic onto their windows, like on the outside of their house, to kind of keep some of the heat in. So that helps. Also, like, be strategic about the way you heat your house. Don't heat up the entire house. Heat up like one room, and then dedicate yourself to staying in that one room as long as possible throughout the day. Thankfully for me, because I'm a teacher, I'm at school most of the day, so I don't actually have to spend that much resources to heat up my house compared to a family that has like maybe elderly folks or people that just stay at home all day. So that's lucky. I didn't have to buy as much firewood. But yeah, so have your heat source, have your insulation, heat up one room in your home, excuse me. And yeah, part of that, like I said, is having a wood stove, so get your wood prepared. I have some wood that I bought, and it came in these huge like tree trunk things, like long logs, and then I hired a guy to cut it, and the wood and the labor was very expensive. But make sure that your wood is dry. That's important. And don't do this. Don't use like a round stick log, if you will. It's better if you cut the log in half lengthwise. It's easier for the wood to light, is what people have told me. And to dry your wood out, you can also put it under your wood stove. So I'm going to show you my wood stove now. If I can figure out how to flip this. So I keep wood here. This is new wood that I've bought this year, so it's not quite dry, but my neighbor told me if I stuck the wood under the stove, it would dry faster. So this, everybody, oh my god, it's so hard to do this. This is my wood stove. There is a pipe that goes all the way up to the ceiling, and that's the chimney. And let's see how to do this. Yeah, so that bowl thing is covering some potatoes that I am cooking under the stove, or on the stove. And it's pretty cool because you just throw them on, cover them, and then you got potatoes. And they're just sort of baking with the heat of the wood stove. And so another thing you want to know is you're gonna need um, like smaller sticks, small dry pieces of wood to light your fire and kind of get it going. So yeah, I had some left over from when the owners of my home, my house, were actually living here. So thankfully I have that, and that helps light the stove. Also, what people use here is saliarka, which is basically gasoline, and they either soak rags, like cut up pieces of cloth, in the oil, gas, whatever, and they put it in their wood stove, and that's how they light it. Or they just like have a bottle and they cut holes in the top and they sort of squirt the fluid into the stove, and that helps kind of get the fire going. So yeah, definitely hit up your local Saliarka dealer because like literally my neighbor sells it um, for people like all over the village. So I can just go to her, get a bottle for like 500 dram, and it should last me quite a long time. So super stoked. Today's the first day I've gotten my Varan to actually light because my neighbor came over and helped me, and I'm very grateful to her for that. Um, but yeah, that's how you stay warm. I know winter is coming. It's rough, man, especially for us village folks. Um, but we'll make it through, and I hope this video kind of helps prospective volunteers and people back home and friends and family kind of realize what I'm living, and that it's not that bad. It's cold. It is not my favorite season. I hate winter. I love summer. I don't like cold. I don't like snow. I really don't like anything that has to do with winter. But the Armenian people in my village make it worthy of living here. It is a warm time of the year in spirit because we have holidays. It's the biggest holiday season in Armenia, so it's cold, but my heart is warm. So with that, I will sign off, and I wish you all a very happy Northari and Christmas eventually. Bye.